First time I heard the term super Locrian, I didn't know what they were talking about. I thought they were talking about a superhero. Didn't hear it right the first time, but when I heard the chord itself, I knew exactly what it was and what they were talking about. And it is not necessarily a chord. A super Locrian is a scale. All right, we can say that. Bear with me, please, when I lost my voice, a little cold thing going around, flu, whatever it is. Plus, I was screaming like a crazy man in Space Mountain. So I'm going to cover this super Locrian. Before I get too much into that, what I want to do is talk about the melodic minor scale. But what the super Locrian is the seventh mode of the melodic minor scale. When you hear these terms, melodic minor, super Locrian, Locrian, all that, they're Greek terms, but they are very important. It's not just nomenclature name that's in these just for kicks and giggles because somebody said, hey, let's make music as hard as possible. It actually helps you to remember. It actually comes from somewhere. It actually helps you to remember the modes and the scales in which you derive your chords and or scales. So we're going to take the super Locrian and we're going to do an example. Well, before I get into any examples, let me show you what I mean by super Locrian. I've taught on the melodic minor before. The melodic minor in C will be C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B, and C again. All the melodic minor is, I've covered it in a few videos. It's just one note that changes and it's the third. You're going to flatten the third. Now, with that, we're not going to so much concentrate on the C melodic minor. We're going to do a 2-5-1 chord progression. And the reason why we do 2-5-1 chord progression so much is because they come up all the time in gospel. And let me find my foot pedal. They come up all the time in gospel. And they're, it's just a popular chord movement, and it would best help to describe what we're trying to do. And it's the best thing to illustrate. So a 2-5-1, of course, would be D, G, and C. All right. And the reason why you would use the melodic minor is because you want that 5 chord. If you notice on the thumbnail, I had a 5, Superman 5 in the chest. It's a super Locrian because it alters so much of the chord. And I'll explain what I mean. We're not looking so much, like I said, at the C melodic minor. Let's look at the 5 chord because your super Locrian will be used off of the 5 chord. So you have, I don't know, we like to take the minor 7 flat 5 like we like to do. And then we go to G chord, right? We can take the G chord and then go back home to back to C. But in this case, the melodic minor, the 7th mode, will take it from A flat. Why A flat? I'll show you why. Because we're looking not at A flat itself, we're looking at the 7th mode of A flat melodic minor, which is the super Locrian. A flat melodic minor or G sharp melodic minor. So your G sharp A flat melodic minor would be A flat, B flat, B. All right, and then we go to D flat, E flat, F, G, and back to A flat. So this would be your melodic minor, but the 7th mode of the melodic minor is the altered scale. All right, what's known as the altered scale, or G, in this case, G alt. You might see that notated G A L T, and that's what that is. Again, the reason, if I didn't mention this before, the reason why it's altered because we're changing so much of the chord structure. So for example, we have our G chord here, right? We definitely have our 7, right? So the 4 chords that we have, the 4, I wouldn't say prominent, but major and minor, because there's augmented chords in there. But the first chord, of course, is going to be your G here, and it's going to be a diminished. But we're not looking at that. We're not looking at diminished or augmented. We're going to look at major and minor. So this is your first minor chord here. This is your second minor chord for G alt, or the 7th mode of A flat melodic minor. Or you can just say G alt or G super Locrian. And then this is your first major triad and your second major triad. So again, out of all the notes in the alt scale, you just have 2 minor triads and 2 major triads. Okay? Now what we can do is, as we use that chord, we say, okay, 2, and then we have our 5 here. All right, we can replace, substitute, do a few substitutions. But what I want you to realize, the reason why it's called an alt chord and why you would want to go and use it, because it brings so much tension to the 5 chord versus a 5 chord or some kind of a type of 13 chord or whatever. You can use that, but the alteration, or the altered part, I should say, it's like a Taylor alteration. The altered part is going to be your flatted 9 or your sharp 9. Because with the altered scale, you have your flat 9 and your sharp 9. Or you have your flat 5 and your sharp 5. You can use either one. So this would be an altered chord here because you altered the 9th and the 5th. Because remember, we're not playing the 9th, which would be A, or the 5th, which would be D. Because we just have our root, which is 1. In this case, we're not saying the root is not A flat. The root would be G, all right? So this is your root, your 7, and your 3. And this gives, of course, this is your dominant chord. This gives the chord its chord tone, all right? So we have that here. So now if we wanted to take that and alter it, I can just play this here and take the 5th note of G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, thinking of G major, and flatten it a half step. Or I can sharpen it a half step. Or heck, I can play both. I can play a G7, flat 5, and a sharp 5 at the same time. Or I can take in and play a G7, sharp 5, flat 5, and just take the 9th and flatten it. Or alter that. You're altering the structures of the chord. Just remember, it's the 9th and the 5th that you're changing. And the reason why you want to do that, because you want to create the tension that you need to resolve the chord. And it works mostly well with a resolution on a minor chord. For example, 2, 5, 1. You could do, 2, 2, and then go back to major if you wanted to. There's no, telling you not. There's nothing telling you not to do that. But it's typical to use that alter chord for a 5 and then 1, because it matches so many of the chord tones as far as what you have. Like if you did a C minor 7th, well, you have the B flat and you have the E flat, or the D sharp for G, remember, sharp 5, or your flatted 9, or your G minor, flat 9 here, and you can just resolve. So it's very close here. Okay, and with jazz gospel, you're not spreading your chords all over the place and throwing yourself. You don't want to do that. You want to keep it as simple as possible. So again, 2, all right. We can do whatever we want here. And then resolve right back. Again, to, like I said, it's a minor chord typically. So if we wanted to do a minor chord, well, what would we get a minor scale from? Or what minor scale would work for that? Again, we can use the melodic minor to actually resolve. So we can go 2, all right, 5, and then we can do what jazz guys love to do, all right? Your C is going to be in the bass, of course. And this is your minor major 7 chord. So you don't want to use that too much because it's very dark and spooky. But you do want to use that as far as a color tone. So if I did a 2, 5, 1, you hit the minor here. To do that, to use that as a color tone. And those are some examples in C. All right, let's take G flat now and do an example here for I Do Worship, John P. Key, right? It's a nice old worship song. So we can do several things here. The first chord is, G flat major, right? So remember, our melodic minor, we're just changing one note, but we're using the 7th mode. So, and it works very good to go to 6 chords, all right? We can do 1, 2, 6, and then 5. All right, 5, and then back to, we can do 2 now for 3 for A, G flat. I, do, were, and now instead of going just right back to the 3 chord, we do the were, rather this, I'm sorry. I, do, were. All right, we can do that chord there. The altered chord works very well as a 5 chord. Not that it has anything to do with, remember, I'm using F to go to B flat. It has nothing to do necessarily with G flat, except for the fact that it's the 7th mode. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of G flat melodic minor. The 7th mode would be your altered. So what we have for F is our sharp 5, or we could do our flat 5 here. The same thing with the 9. We can do the sharp 9 in F, sharp 9 or flat 9, because they all come from the G melodic minor scale. Okay, so we can do this too. We don't necessarily have to just play the root all the time, or we can just do this. We can start off I Do Worship, so we can start it off on the 3. All right, instead of the major 1, we can do I do worship, like I said before, all right? And again, I do worship. We don't have to go back to that F because this is all in the F sharp, G flat, melodic minor. And don't think of, well, that's the key that I'm in. How are you playing F sharp, melodic minor? You're in G flat major. Don't think of that. Think of the scale. Always think of scales, because if you get your mind wrapped up so much in keys, it's just going to throw you off. The reason why I say that, when you think of scales, you think of 2-5-1 chord progressions, because it's all 2-5-1 chord progressions. I don't care what anybody says. That's all it is. So we go from here, all right, and we go right back to the beginning. And we can do this too. Shep. Whatever. So that's how that would work as far as your altered chords. Again, you want to take it, to recap, you want to take your altered chords, altered scale, or your sharp 5, sharp 9 chords. For those of you that know or have seen sheet music, or you'll see it as G alt, or in this case, F sharp, F alt, or F altered. Know that you have several notes. You don't have to just say, I'm going to play this voicing every single time. You have a lot of options when it comes to that, because you have 2 minor chords and 2 major chords. All right, so in this case, we can play the B major, we have that, and we have D flat major. And then we have G flat minor, and we have A flat minor for our F alt. F altered, super Locrian, all right? Or your sharp 5, sharp 9, or flat 5, flat 9 chord structure. So again, just to reiterate, you can use that preceding a major chord. It's a great 5 chord. You can, again, if I wanted to do F to go to B flat major, I could. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. But because there's so many chord tones, barred from the proceeding or the next key, it's better to stick with it, especially when you're just coming along and learning this, to stick with the minor key tonality. So you would do F sharp, F7, sharp 5, all right, sharp 9. So we have our here, we have sharp 5, and then we have the 7 and the sharp 9 here, right? So we can take that and just go where you want to resolve, because there's so many, except for the 1 here, here, and here. All right, to get you to that B flat 7 sound. Okay, and there's other chords that you can actually take that would resolve, that you can alter that resolve better to major chords, or differently, I should say. But that's to be honest, scope of this video right now. I hope that's helped, and if it has, go check out gospelprogressionsuniversity.com/Gospel Keys Pro. And you can download my free guide. It's called What Do Pro Musicians Know That You Don't? And God bless you. I'll see you in the next video.